Chapter 71. I've decided a truly strong person needs to be able to withstand loneliness. Suyu then smiled. Uncle Dashin. I'll be frank, I'm mainly focused on willpower cultivation. I've gathered some information about the Martial Dragon War Academy before. It has a cultural researcher course as well, however. He did not finish his words, but Old Shin understood his meaning. Old Shi smiled. That's in the past. Things are different this year. Since Liu Wenyan is your mentor, you should understand the difference between the different ranks of researchers. Naturally, the ranks were given by the cultural research academies to differentiate their researchers. However, you can also see the ranks as the acknowledgement of a researcher's strength. This time, over a dozen intermediate researchers and several senior researchers from the martial dragon gods will be returning. We're winding down our activities on the Alhaven battlefield, so these people will start teaching in the academy instead. In our academy, there are very few cultural research students. One full researcher will be in charge of teaching only 10 students. I admit that the Great Xia Cultural Research Academy is much stronger in terms of cultural research cultivation, but they also have a lot of students, including the graduates, the undergraduates, the old students living on stipends, and so on. They have tens of thousands of people below the Skysoar realm. The old man seriously said, however, they have less than 300 researchers teaching in the academy. A researcher will be in charge of teaching 100 students on average. So do you really think you can learn more there? The competition is very stiff there. Everyone is busy scheming against each other for benefits and resources. With the recently opened foreign student faculty, things are even more chaotic there. Years might pass before you see your first full researcher. And even after meeting one, the researcher might not necessarily be willing to teach you. Things are different in the Martial Dragon War Academy. You're from a military family. From that alone, the academy will view you differently. Since you're decently talented as well, you might even get a senior researcher personally teaching you. That is completely different from what you would receive at the Cultural Research Academy. Old Shi spoke earnestly. I am very optimistic about your future. Why? Because I believe that the descendants of soldiers are the best. Suyu was somewhat speechless. There were millions of soldiers in Great Xia, and there were even more descendants of soldiers in the prefecture. Thus, his words were essentially pointless. Uncle Yin, I'll think about it. I can make you a special recruit student. You can even get additional benefits in the academy. You will receive 100 merit points directly. It will take you years to earn that much in the Cultural Research Academy. Without merit points, you will have to perform odd jobs to make a living in the academy. You would eventually miss your golden window of cultivation by spending years doing odd jobs at the academy. Your future will be essentially ruined then. At that time, Chen Hao's eyes lit up as he asked in excitement, am I getting that as well? Old Si really wanted to tell Chen Hao to look in the mirror. He was on the verge of saying exactly that before he swallowed his words and smiled. If Suyu joins, I'll give you a middle-tier yellow-grade saber as a gift. What do you think? Chen Hao's mouth was agape. A saber like that was worth more than $100,000. Was the Martial Dragon War Academy really that rich? But Chen Hao immediately realized what was going on. He felt somewhat disheartened at the realization that the gift was contingent upon Suyu joining them. However, Suyu would not join them. He was already an 8th stage source opening cultivator. Why would he even join them? He would be better off joining the Great Xia War Academy. Although Suyu could grow rapidly in the Martial Dragon War Academy, that academy did not have enough history. The Great Xia War Academy, on the other hand, was different. That was an old academy with rich history and deep accumulation of wealth and resources. Even if all other factors were ignored, the Great Xia War Academy still had more Mountain Sea experts than the Martial Dragon War Academy. Seeing that Suyu was still indifferent, Old Shi went straight to the point. Suyu, think it through. 100 merit points, 10 drops of source chi liquid, and 1 visit to a secret grotto. That is the best the Martial Dragon War Academy can offer. I doubt any academy can give you a better offer. Even some geniuses at the 9th stage source opening realm and completed divine character would not receive such an offer. Only by receiving a special permission from the academy can a student enjoy such benefits. That will be the same in all academies. If you join the Cultural Research Academy, even after forming a divine character, Your willpower is still too weak for them to offer you that much. With the limited authority I have, I am giving you the best benefits a student can get. Also, I'm not lying when saying that the Cultural Research Academy is very chaotic. You can ask your mentor. Ask him how things are within the Cultural Research Academy right now. Su Yu nodded. Thank you for the advice, Uncle Xian. I will think it through. Think carefully. If you join us, you can even visit your father. The devil-subduing army is starting to pull back, and their soldiers will be rotated in and out of the battlefield. You can visit your father at any time. That is not a benefit you can get from any other academy. The final offer actually moved Su Yu. He sank into silence. After a while he said, I'll think it through. I'll be taking my leave then. Old C was disappointed to see that Su Yu was still not agreeing, but since he had already offered everything he could, it was pointless to keep wasting his time there. Uncle Keon was only here as Old C's proof of identity. Thus, Su Yu did not need to worry too much about him. After the two left, Chen Hao looked at Su Yu enviously and said, Are they here to recruit you before the exam? Yes. He recalled how he was still worrying about passing the examination, while his friend was already being recruited directly. The treatment was so good that he almost felt like stealing the chance from Su Yu if possible. However, Su Yu still refused to agree. Su Yu smiled. The capital does not lack geniuses. The Martial Dragon War Academy is probably here because of some other reason. They were definitely not here because of his certified languages or his cultivation level. The Martial Dragon War Academy did not lack similar students. What they treasured more was his participation in the Windcatcher Department's operation. Through his actions during the operation, Uncle Doshi must have guessed that he had completed his divine character. Although team leader Liu had promised that his participation would be kept secret from outsiders, it wasn't surprising for those in the military to know about it. After all, the Martial Dragon Guards was the strongest faction within Great Zia's military. Martial Dragon Guards, Su Yu muttered with a complicated mood. In the past, his biggest wish was to join the Martial Dragon Guards. His father shared the same dream. But now, a Skysoar cultivator from the Martial Dragon Guards was here to personally recruit him. Even Xia Bing had tried to recruit him before. Sure enough, he could only rely on his own ability to get what he wanted. If he was still the same third-stage source opening cultivator from before, nobody would bother recruiting him. Su Yu did not feel that it was unfair. If you weren't valuable enough, why should others place any importance to you? The so-called descendant of a soldier was merely an excuse they used to start a conversation with him. If one wished to rely on the status as the child of a soldier to obtain the support of the military, one might as well forget about it. There were plenty of people with the same status in Great Zia, but the value of that status would change considerably the moment one demonstrated value. If there was a second person with the exact same accomplishments as Su Yu, the Martial Dragon Guards might not even bother sparing that person a look if that person wasn't a child of a soldier. On the other hand, they would treat Su Yu favorably due to his birth. That was a benefit he naturally enjoyed due to his birth. Su Yu knew all that. However, that wasn't what he was thinking about at the moment. Instead, he was wondering if he could fight for more resources after entering the Cultural Research Academy. Instructor Liu told him to perform well without forgetting to hold back a trump card. Which trump card should he hide? With the book in his mind count, he could unleash the offensive prowess of a 7th-stage great strength cultivator. That should count as a trump card, right? He had 2 divine characters completed. If he used only one, the other could be considered a trump card, right? After thinking about it, he realized that he actually had quite a lot of trump cards. The better I perform, the more benefits I'll get. Unconditional love does not exist in this world. If you're completely hopeless, nobody will bother sparing you a second look. Only by showcasing how outstanding you are will others try to recruit you to their cause. Su Yu spent a long time contemplating. When he was done, he looked up at Chen Hao and asked, Hao, what do you have in your mind? What? Do you want to join the Great Zia War Academy or the Martial Dragon War Academy? I don't know, Chen Hao answered blankly. I guess I'll join whichever I can. Both of them are good enough for me. I'm just afraid that I can't get through their assessment. You will be fine. If you want to enter the Great Zia War Academy, with their reduced requirements for Nenyuan students, you will be able to get in. But there, You'll be one of the weaker students. You won't be the weakest, but you'll definitely be weak enough to be considered a deadweight by some of them. If you enter the Martial Dragon War Academy, you can become a mid-tier student if you're able to perform decently, Su Yu seriously said. However, the Great Zia War Academy has more to offer. They have a deep accumulation of knowledge and resources. After all, they were founded by the Great Zia King himself. They also have a lot of experts in their ranks. Of course, there are benefits to joining the Martial Dragon War Academy as well. They are backed by the Martial Dragon Guards, and have been growing rapidly since their establishment. Chen Hao had a sad face as he said, "Stop analyzing. You're making my head hurt. I'm even more confused now. Where do you think I should go? Both have their benefits, but you should join the Martial Dragon War Academy." Huh? I thought you said that the Great Zia War Academy is better? Su Yu rolled his eyes. Stupid. The Martial Dragon War Academy has a better environment. They are fully under the military's control, so things will be more fair there. Since it is still a relatively new academy, there aren't that many factions in it either. Thus, there will be less discrimination inside. The Great Zia War Academy is too crowded. There are legacy students whose families have been there for generations. Someone without a background and without a top-notch talent like you will only end up as someone's little brother there. Or worse, they won't even accept you as a little brother because you're too dumb. Chen Hao felt aggrieved. Was he really that dumb? So I should join the Martial Dragon War Academy? Yes, Su Yu answered. I suggest that you join the Martial Dragon War Academy. That will be better for you. If you're someone with a backer, with talent, or with intelligence, I'll suggest that you join the Great Zia War Academy. That place can help you go further, but you have neither of those. So you're better off joining the Martial Dragon War Academy. Sounds like I'm completely useless. Is there really nothing good about me? Yes, there are, Su Yu answered seriously. You can go run an errand for me and buy something to eat. You're good for that. Chen Hao had a sour face. That was too mean. Su Yu laughed and teased. I was joking. You have your strengths as well. When you're at the Martial Dragon War Academy, don't worry too much. You can maintain a low profile. You can also show off as much as you want. That's up to you. The only thing you must do is to remain sincere. What? Don't change. Stay to your true self. The military likes that the most. Su Yu smiled. Like my father, he loves you. Do you think that's because you're handsome or you're dumb? No. Don't be too dumb. You only need to look dumb and honest. Be obedient and listen to the instructors and the academy. You'll be fine. Chen Hao was confused. However, he still nodded solemnly and said, I understand. How about you? I'm joining the Cultural Research Academy, the Great Zia Cultural Research Academy. What? Chen Hao was astonished. I thought you said that you wanted to. I wasn't serious, Su Yu laughed. The Great Zia Cultural Research Academy is the true center of Great Zia's cultural researchers. There, numerous races are gathered. There, countless geniuses converge. If I only hope for a smooth and safe growth, I won't go there. However, I want to go further. I'm also a genius. Bai Feng said that I'm not one. The instructor said that I'm not one either. But I am a genius, one of the best of my generation. Otherwise, why would the Martial Dragon War Academy try to recruit me? They're all afraid that I would lose myself in my arrogance. But that won't happen. I know myself. I won't overestimate myself. But neither would I underestimate myself. How? Prior to willpower materialization, cultural researchers are weak. The world is a dangerous place for them. During that time, I'll be relying on you to protect me. Cultivate well. Us brothers will have the chance to fight side by side at the Al-Haven battlefield one day. Weak. Chen Hao looked at Su Yu before looking at himself. You're at the 8th stage while I'm only at the 5th stage. Yes, you're frail. You're shorter and smaller than me. But you can probably beat 10 of me without any issues. How are you weak? Chen Hao had a mournful expression at the realization that he couldn't even beat someone trying to be a cultural researcher. Will I still be at the source opening realm by the time you materialize your willpower? Chen Hao felt like crying. He was too weak. No. You can reach the great strength realm quickly, It won't take you longer than a year. However, I doubt I can materialize my willpower in 1 year. After comforting Chen Hao, Su Yu added, in a year, I will probably reach only the 8th stage great strength realm. At most, I'll be at the infinite strength realm. Don't you worry about it? Chen Hao decided that he wasn't going to talk to Su Yu anymore. Seeing Chen Hao's reaction, Su Yu laughed again. He took a deep breath as he thought about the ongoing chaos at the capital, all that was unrelated to him. His current focus was to showcase his talent during the entrance examinations and step onto a bigger stage. Don't worry, instructor. I won't grow arrogant. My goal is far higher than this. The book in his mind was still awaiting his exploration. How was he supposed to do so without killing a couple of divines and devils? Chapter 72. Traps everywhere, one before anyone knew it. It was the 25th of June. The entrance examinations had arrived. The War Academy entrance examination would be held in the morning, while the Cultural Research Academy entrance examination would be held in the afternoon. On the next day, the Internal Affairs and Scientific Research examinations would be held. The latter two had comparatively lower requirements. Most students would only register for those two examinations if they had no other options. The examinations were all held at the Nanyuan Secondary School. The school was already packed with people early in the morning. The city guards, Windcatcher Department, and Martial Dragon Guards had all been deployed. Security was tight. Thousands of students would be present today. These people were the future of Nanyuan, so the city took this matter very seriously. The Myriad race cult's attack was very recent, so the city was still quite paranoid about safety. Su Yu and Chen Hao arrived together. They saw that many parents were already waiting outside the school, and the roads around the school were filled with vehicles. Su Yu could even see Chen Hao's father there, personally managing the traffic around the school. Several unknown staff members were stationed at the school gate. After verifying the identities of Su Yu and Chen Hao, they allowed the two to enter. Will I fail the exam? Chen Hao was nervous. He had been asking the same question the entire morning. Su Yu sighed and said, if even a 5th stage source opening cultivator like you can fail, then very few people in Nanyuan can get through the exam. But not even a 5th stage source opening cultivator is guaranteed to pass. Stupid. Su Yu scolded. Yes, 5th stage source opening cultivators could still fail the examination, but this fellow should have more confidence in himself. There was nothing Su Yu could do if he didn't believe in himself. The two started heading toward the venue of the examination. On the way, they encountered many other students. Most of the students were people they didn't know. After all, apart from Nanyuan Secondary School, the students of other local secondary schools were here as well. Additionally, there were also many guest students from the capital around. It wasn't that hard to determine which of them were the guest students. The locals would mostly be dressed in their uniforms, while the guest students would be dressed in casual clothing that looked much more fashionable than what the locals were wearing. The guest students were wearing grave expressions on their faces. Most of them were keeping to themselves. None of them were in the mood to pay any attention to the local students. They completely ignored the hostile looks the locals were throwing their way. Those hostile glares were of no importance to them. They did not even view these local students as their competitors. Outside the examination building, several students of both genders were gathered. They seemed to have just encountered each other. Most guest students did not know anyone else, but that wasn't the case for them. Standing at the middle of the group was a slender, tall woman with a long ponytail. She had a cold expression on her face. As for the people surrounding her, the young men were handsome while the young women were pretty. They stood out from the other students in the area. Not far away, some students seemed to have recognized who they were and were pointing at the group while talking among themselves. However, the group ignored all the attention they were getting. Despite standing together, the mood was slightly awkward among them, as nobody knew what to say. After a while, a man with a bright smile said, "You're all here as well. What a coincidence." "Yeah, what a coincidence. I thought all of you will take the exam at the capital." "So you guys are not confident enough to take the exam at the capital as well. I thought I'm the only one here." With someone taking the lead, they finally started conversing among themselves. The woman in the middle frowned. After a while, she berated, "Stop pretending. None of us will fail the exam even if we take it in the capital. Stop acting like you don't know why we're here." These youngsters were still not experienced enough with social interactions to deal with the sudden outburst, so the mood turned awkward again. Shortly after, One of them slowly said, I didn't even want to take the exam here. It's too embarrassing. But my second uncle forced me to come take a look at that fellow called Suyu. Assistant researcher Bai had suddenly decided to accept that fellow as a personal student. Instantly their expressions changed. A few of them glanced at the woman with a ponytail. One of them asked, Ulan, you're here for this as well? You have an evaluation of high middle. Do you even need to do this? Ulan's face turned cold as she said, I want to take a look for myself and see just how outstanding this Suyu is. He is apparently so outstanding that assistant researcher Bai called me useless at the enrollment center. She was Wu Qi's younger sister. Previously, when Liu Huang recommended her to Bai Feng had given a disdainful response. Wu Qi did not care. But when Wu Lan heard about the incident, she found it unacceptable. More than that, she found it humiliating. It would be fine if Bai Feng silently rejected her. However, he just had to say that there was nothing special about her high-middle evaluation. Those words were too insulting for her. Thus, she was here at Nanyuan for an entirely different reason. Most of these people were here to try their luck. If they were better than Suyu, they might be able to attract Bai Feng's attention and be accepted as his personal student. Wu Lan wasn't here for that. She only wanted to show Bai Feng how much of a trash that personal student of his was. She needed Bai Feng to realize that his chosen student was so terrible that this student wasn't even qualified to be compared with her. Bai Feng wasn't the one refusing to accept her. Instead, she was the one unwilling to be the personal student of an assistant researcher like Bai Feng. If it wasn't for Bai Feng's teacher, his status as a mere assistant researcher would be nothing special in the academy. Wu Lan's elder sister was also an assistant researcher, and she was even closer to being a full researcher than Bai Feng was. Since someone had spoken the truth, the group stopped pretending. One of them whispered, He's taking both the cultural research and war exams. This War Academy examination is probably just an interlude. His main focus will be the Cultural Research Academy examination in the afternoon. Do you think he has a divine character already? Someone burst out laughing. It's not that I'm looking down on him, but he's nearly a Nanyuan student. How many willpower texts have he even seen before? How high can his willpower be? Divine character? Maybe he doesn't even know what a divine character is. Wu Lan was starting to get annoyed. She said, He's not our competitor. They might be here at Nanyuan, but they weren't actually here to compete against Suyu. They were only here to teach Bai Feng a lesson. Their exact goals might differ, but all in all, Bai Feng was still the reason they were here. They needed to show Bai Feng that his personal student was garbage. They needed to humiliate him for accepting such a worthless student. Without them, Suyu might be able to place first in Nanyuan. That would give Bai Feng a better look for accepting such a student. But with them here, Suyu wouldn't be able to place even in the top 10. That was very different from placing first. With that, those antagonistic toward Bai Feng and those trying to change Bai Feng's mind would achieve their goals. While they were speaking, one of them looked at Chen Hao and Suyu, who had just arrived. That person asked doubtfully, Is that him? The rest of the group looked over. They had all seen Suyu's profile before, so one of them immediately recognized him. Yes, it's him. Shall we go have a chat with him? No thanks, it's pointless. Some of them refused. They were completely uninterested in conversing with Suyu. However, they would still pay close attention to him. Talking to him simply wouldn't change anything. Suyu wouldn't be able to do anything. He wasn't the one deciding whether Bai Feng would accept him as a personal student or not. These people weren't fools. Their main goal was to showcase how great they were compared to Suyu and catch Bai Feng's attention. They were not here to be Suyu's friend. Someone else said he's a frog in a well. His worldview has been constrained by this small city. Why don't we show him how weak he is and make him give up on the exam himself? Sure, feel free to do it yourself. They ignored the suggestion. If they followed the rules and performed so exceptionally in the examinations that Suyu was ashamed to enter the academy, the fault would be on Suyu, not them. But if they actually went to directly create trouble for Suyu, well, did they really think that Bai Feng was a pushover? Did they really think that Liao Wenyan would not lose his temper? They weren't here to crush Suyu's confidence. That would not help them. They would only invite the ire of several cultural researchers for no benefit whatsoever. After all, these were all students that had been trained to join an academy. The truly brainless ones would have been eliminated from the competition long before reaching this step. In fact, that person making the suggestion was probably harboring some bad intentions toward the others as well. The same person incited, "Are we supposed to just stand here and look at him? According to our information, he's only a 5th stage source opening cultivator. Why don't we give him a scare with our willpower? That will be enough to decrease his performance and make him fail even the War Academy examination as well." "Sure. Do it then," Wu Lan coldly said. "Go on, do it. Why are you only talking instead of doing anything? If you're confident that Assistant Researcher Liu Hong can guarantee your safety, go ahead and do it. Keep trying to instigate me and trust me when I say that I'll sacrifice my chance to take the exam this year, just to make sure you will no longer be able to take any exams your entire life." The instigator's expression changed as he hurriedly denied. "Wu Lan, I don't know Assistant Researcher Liu Hong well. What nonsense are you saying?" Sure. I was speaking nonsense," Wu Lan coldly said. "I was just testing you. Both Liu Hong and Bai Feng are competing fairly. That does not break any unwritten rules. But you're trying to break the unwritten rules. Trying to hide it only makes things worse. You will bring disaster to yourself. It doesn't matter whose people you are, but I'm now sure that you're not one of Liu Hong's. Stop thinking that everyone except you are fools." A young man in the group grinned and said, "Maybe he's from the Myriad race cult. They love doing things like this. They really think that everyone is stupid. It's obvious this fellow is trying to escalate the conflict between Assistant Bai Feng and Assistant Liu Hong. Either he's from the Myriad race cult, or he was sent by the other assistant researchers." "Hey, you, just shut your mouth. Continue running your mouth and we'll get the martial dragon gods to investigate you. Their investigation will reveal everything about you. We will remember this." The instigator's expression changed yet again. After a while he said, "I'm not from the Myriad race cult. If you don't believe me, I am willing to curse all of the divine and devil races verbally. Don't even think of framing me. Even if you're trying to reduce your competition, you shouldn't play this dirty. You need to take responsibility for falsely accusing someone as well." None of them was bothered to say anything to him after that. It really didn't matter if he was from the cult. The cult members wouldn't dare to actually expose themselves. And if he was really a cult member, what could he do as a mere source opening cultivator? Traps everywhere, too. While the group were talking among themselves, Suyu sensed some gazes on him. When he turned his head to look, he noted that those people were all dressed fashionably. It was obvious they were all guest students. Those people seemed to be sizing him up. He looked around and continued walking forward. However, their gazes continued following him. Of course, there was also a possibility that they were actually looking at Chen Hao, but the probability of that being the case was very small. "Are they here because of Bai Feng, or has my role in killing that infinite strength cultivator leaked?" Suyu mused to himself. Ultimately, he decided to just ignore them. Right that moment, a man walked out of the examination hall and shouted, "Line up and enter the building! There are 5 exam rooms in total. You can find them on the 1st through 5th floors. Enter each room in accordance with the number you've been given earlier. Before the exam is over, nobody is allowed to leave. Nobody is allowed to cheat. Anyone caught cheating will be barred for life from all academies. Maintain order in the exam room. Troublemakers will be barred from taking any entrance exam for 3 years. Those with 200 marks and above in the exam will be accepted on the spot. Those below that will wait for further notice. Those who are also taking the Cultural Research Academy exam in the afternoon will have to manage your strength and energy well. If you tire yourself out only to fail both exams, you're the only one who will suffer." After the series of announcements, the city guards stepped aside and allowed the students to enter. Suyu checked the number he was given, 5101. He was the 101st student of the 5th floor. Chen Hao would be taking the examination separately on the 3rd floor. Chen Hao was getting more and more nervous. He looked at Suyu and whispered, "You were not together." "What now? It's not like we're going to cheat together." Suyu rolled his eyes. "Just do your best. This isn't a big deal. If a simple exam can make you so nervous, How are you supposed to survive the Alhaven battlefield? Are you going to piss your pants the moment you reach the front line? Suyu lowered his voice and continued. We've killed even great strength cultivators before. You don't even need to kill anyone for this exam. What are you afraid of? Chen Hao found those words reasonable and exhaled in relief. Yeah, he was also someone who had done something big before. Was there a need for him to fear a mere examination? The students entered the building one after another. Fifth examination room. 5 proctors were in charge of this venue. For the War Academy entrance examination, the proctors came from the Great Zia War Academy, the Martial Dragon War Academy, the Talent Fostering Bureau, the local government, and the military. The 5th proctor from the military was not from the Martial Dragon Guards. Rather, this was a person sent by the Devil Subduing Army. The Devil Subduing Army had a small group of personnel stationed in Nenua. They were mainly in the city for recruitment. Every year during the entrance examinations, there would be students failing the examinations or unwilling to sit for the examinations for various reasons. The Devil Subduing Army would show themselves and extend an invitation to these people. The 5 proctors in charge of the 5th examination room had all arrived. The proctor from the Martial Dragon War Academy was none other than Old C. The proctor from the Great Zia War Academy was a young man. After all the proctors were seated, the young man asked doubtfully, Instructor Chin, aren't you in the audit team in charge of overseeing the entire exam? Why are you here? Apart from the proctors, there was also an audit team. They were in charge of settling disputes, supervising the proctors and monitoring the examination. As the leader of the Martial Dragon War Academy's delegation, Old Sain should be in the audit team instead. Old Sawi smiled and said, I'm an old man. It's too tiring to oversee the entire exam. Someone else can do the job. I'll stay here. The young man did not ask more. It didn't really matter. The proctor from the Talent Fostering Bureau was a middle-aged woman. They weren't familiar with her, so nobody bothered conversing with her. The proctor from Nenuan was the deputy commander of the city guards. He was an infinite strength cultivator, someone much weaker compared to a person like Old C. Thus, he was staying comparatively low profile. The proctor from the Devil Subduing Army was also a silent person, not bothering to converse with anyone. With none of the proctors talking, it was rather quiet in the room. Old C looked around and smiled without saying anything. In truth, all 5 of them could be considered competitors. They were going to be fighting over any promising young talents they found. It hadn't been easy for the Martial Dragon War Academy to get the position of a proctor in this examination. In the past, they weren't qualified to send their own proctors to the examinations. Because of that, most of the best talents ended up recruited by the Great Zia War Academy. 10 years ago, the prefect had helped them get the right to send their own proctors to the yearly examinations as well. Since then, they had been able to fight for the young talents before these young talents were snatched by the other academies. After a short wait, Old C said, if nobody has any issues, we'll begin. Sure, no problem. Old C then looked at the city guards stationed at the entrance and said, open up. Let the students in. The city guards did as told and opened the door. Students entered the room one after another. Suyu was among them. He was curiously looking around. This building was usually closed for the public. This was his first visit here. With one look, he could see that this building was different from the other blocks in the school. The floor was spacious and empty. This building was obviously a place only used for entrance examinations. There were 5 examination rooms in total. Each room would handle around 600 to 700 students. All students would take the examination at the same time instead of in batches. Thus, the examination wouldn't take too much time and would be over in one morning. Students, find your seats and sit down. No noise allowed in the exam room. The contents of the exam are not to be leaked. The contents of the exam are not to be leaked. Remember, manage your time, strength and energy well. The person speaking was the young man from the Great Zia War Academy. His face turned stern as he said, you've all seen the passing requirements. But those are not absolute. You won't be guaranteed 120 marks just because you're a 6th-stage source opening cultivator. Your judgment and capability will determine whether you can get all those marks. Not all source opening cultivators are equal. A 6th-stage source opening cultivator might perform worse than a 3rd-stage source opening cultivator. We will only accept the best of the best. The rest of you will have to seek a different future. Hearing that, The students who were still busy looking for their seats started feeling nervous. They had heard that for this examination, strength and knowledge were important. However, things might change sometimes. For example, those at the 4th stage or 5th stage, source opening realm, might end up with low marks as well. This exam would last 4 hours. We will start at 8 and end at 12. Remember, manage your time and energy well. The same reminder was given to the students. Suyu's eyes flickered as he sank into thought. This wasn't the first time he was hearing that advice. One of the students muttered, "It's just a matter of balance. Why repeat it so many times?" Immediately after, Old Seen's eyes turned cold as he said, "Take him out. Put him in detention for 4 hours." 2 city guards walked over and dragged the stunned student away. I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. Teacher, give me another chance." Old C ignored the student. He indifferently said, "Make no noise. Raise your hand if you have any questions. This is the War Academy entrance exam. We expect discipline from you. We do not enjoy repeating ourselves. Is this how you're going to act on the battlefield as well? Did the 5 years at your secondary school not teach you discipline? On the battlefield, concealment and ambushes are commonplace. You will always be surrounded by your comrades. If you talk when you're not supposed to, you might cause the entire team, or even the entire army, to be annihilated. Will anyone give you a second chance? Your secondary school students. Not random civilians. Remember to follow the rules." With that one student serving as an example, the examination room instantly sank into silence. However, Suyu and several other students had odd expressions on their faces. That seemed to be a fake student. He must be a paid actor hired to scare the students. Most of the students did not notice anything wrong. However, Suyu sensed that something was off. The student might look nervous when he was being dragged out, but Suyu could feel that the student didn't really care. In fact, he looked like someone who was glad after finally completing his mission. Suyu was speechless. Why did they need to do all that just for an examination? Then again, it seemed to be really effective. The room was now so silent that one could even hear a pin dropping on the ground. Chapter 74. A different examination. 1. Distribute the papers. After the warning, the examination officially began. Several city guards walked in with a massive chest. The chest was filled with stacks of test papers that could basically be called books due to how thick they were. The young man from the Great Zia War Academy smiled and said, "These are your test papers. In total, there are 660 sets of them. Some sets might repeat, some sets might be different. Complete the set you receive. For the War Academy examination, you won't be able to get more than 100 marks from the language test. You only need to complete the test for 10 languages for full marks. Of course, you can do more. Each set contains the questions for a few dozen languages. You can answer them all and try your luck. Maybe by trying all of them you can score full marks for 10 languages and get all 100 marks offered. There are 10 questions per language. You only need to answer 6 questions correctly to get a passing mark for each language." The students were remaining completely silent. The little demonstration earlier seemed to have worked splendidly. After a while, a student raised his hand. The young proctor said, "Yes, teacher, if my set only contains the languages I don't know, can I exchange the set with a different student?" "Decide for yourself. Just know that you will be disqualified if you break any rule." Meanwhile, Suyu had his brow raised. It seemed like they were doing things differently each year. In the previous year, all the students received the same questions. However, the questions under the different languages would be randomized, forcing the students to match each question with the correct language before answering. This year, the gimmick seemed to have changed as the students were all getting different questions instead. The War Academy examination would not only test one's martial might, one's intelligence would also be tested. That was the case for the Cultural Research Academy examination as well. Thus, Suyu had no idea how he would be tested in both examinations. Since the sets were different from each other, the set one received might not contain the languages one knew. In that scenario, what should one do? Before long, Suyu received a thick stack of paper. He randomly flipped through the pages before noticing that something. The first 3 languages he saw were the Divine Devil language, the Common language, and the Demon language. Those were the compulsory languages that everyone knew. After that, He started seeing other languages. Suyu flipped through the pages rapidly and skimmed through their contents, including the 2 new languages he had learned recently. He had mastered 20 languages in total. However, including the 3 compulsory languages, he could only find 9 languages he knew. Even if he could answer all questions for the languages he knew correctly, he would only get 90 marks instead of 100 marks for the language part of the examination. Of course, that didn't really matter that much for him. However, for the other students, these 10 marks could very well determine whether they could pass the examination. While Suyu was going through the questions, the other students were doing the same. Some of them appeared rather indifferent as they only knew the 3 compulsory languages. These students did not hesitate and immediately started answering the questions. Since they did not know any other languages, the other questions might as well not exist for them. Could they exchange their examination papers? Suyu did not know the answer for that. But since the random nature of the questions were essentially unfair for some of the students, would it be acceptable for the students to actually exchange their papers? Suyu glanced at the proctors, but they were completely expressionless. He couldn't find any clues from their faces. At that point, a lot of the students were already starting to answer their questions. After some hesitation, Suyu reached a decision. He looked at the student seated next to him and asked, "Do you want to exchange your papers with me?" That person was clearly a guest student. He did not even care that Suyu was a local student as he hurriedly asked, "Do you have the flying sky tiger, mountain-piercing mole, and 9-tailed fox languages in your set?" "I'm not sure since I don't even know those languages." Suyu shook his head. Since he hadn't mastered those languages, he naturally wouldn't know they were in his set even if he was looking at them. There were too many races in existence. Nobody could recognize how the characters of every single language in existence were written. The student beside him hesitated slightly before answering, "Let's do it." The 2 then exchanged their papers. The proctors merely looked on silently. Seeing that, the other students stopped hesitating as well. Those who had mastered more than the 3 compulsory languages started exchanging their papers with others. However, one would still need to rely on luck when exchanging papers. Before long, some students noticed that their new papers were even worse than their previous papers. They continued exchanging, but suddenly, the young proctor said, "Exam papers with names written on them can no longer be exchanged." The faces of many students fell. They could only look for students who had yet to write their names on the papers to continue exchanging. Rustling noise resounded continuously in the room for several minutes. At that point, 10 minutes had passed since the examination started. When Suyu looked at his new set, he saw that it was worse than his previous set as he only knew 8 of the languages on it. He frowned. Should he continue exchanging? After some hesitation, he clenched his teeth and decided to settle with 8. He lowered his head and started answering the questions. Some of the other students continued exchanging in hope of getting a better set. Right that moment, Old C pointed at a student and coldly said, "You can't exchange your papers more than thrice. Start answering your questions." "Teacher." The student's face fell as he knew 5 languages in his previous set, but after exchanging it away, he received a set with only 3 languages he knew. At least 20 marks were gone just like that. "Do you want to get disqualified?" "Do you want to?" The student could only shut his mouth in fear and started answering his questions sullenly. Some of the other students looked at each other in dismay. In front of the room, the proctors exchanged glances with each other before smiling. Old Sign transmitted his voice, "Little Joe, do you think they're regretting exchanging their papers right about now?" "Definitely," the young man softly replied. "The first set would be the most suitable set for them. They need to understand that they can't achieve perfection all the time as they might end up losing even more. For the students that are good in languages, their first set will not be satisfactory. However, that would be the case for everyone else. Nobody could get full marks for this part. But by exchanging their papers repeatedly, they are only going to lose more." The young proctor smiled. "The more they exchange, the worse they will feel. I wonder if these little fellows are despairing right now. If this much is enough to make them despair, they should just forget about joining a war academy." Old C was strict. This was merely a tiny trial. If these students couldn't even withstand the pressure of something like this, what would they do when they lost the upper hand on the battlefield? Were they going to rout? Old C sank into thought before continuing, "I'm already wondering how the exam should be conducted next year. Seems like we have tried all sorts of tricks already." "What's the rush?" The young proctor was in no rush. Looking at the time on his wristwatch, he announced, You only have 1 hour for the language test. It has been 20 minutes. You might not have enough time to answer all the questions." The faces of some students dropped. Only an hour was allotted for this section of the examination, yet they had wasted a lot of time on exchanging papers. Between looking for someone and checking their new questions, they would take between 5 to 6 minutes per exchange. Just like that, they had wasted around 20 minutes. Su Yu, who was busy answering his questions, could only smile helplessly. This was basically a massive trap. Wasn't this supposed to be a normal examination? With this little trick they played, some of the better students would be pressed for time as well. They did not have much time remaining. Some of the students who still wanted to exchange their papers couldn't even find anyone willing to exchange with them anymore. Even if one was fast enough to take only 10 minutes per language, one would still need a lot of time to answer the questions for several languages. In the blink of an eye, the hour was over. Collect the papers. With one order, the city guards stepped into the room and collected the papers before sealing them off. Some of the students looked crestfallen when their papers were collected. The time was too short. "If I had known, I wouldn't have exchanged my papers. How unlucky. I know 16 languages, but I was only able to answer the questions for 4 languages. The exam last year was different. They are messing around this year. What's the point of learning so many languages if they're going to do something like this?" Sounds of discussion broke out. This was basically a massive trap. Some of the students who had mastered a lot of languages felt like crying. These people had all been confident they could easily get 100 marks in the language test, but now they would be happy with only 30 or 40 marks. That was much lower than they had expected. As for Su Yu, he had been able to finish answering the questions for all 8 languages he knew. He exhaled in relief and rejoiced that he had not continued exchanging his papers. If he did so, not only would he waste more time, but he might also end up with an even worse set of papers. Good thing I was able to answer all the questions for the 8 languages I know. I am confident I can get at least 60% of them correct. Hopefully I can actually get 80 marks. Su Yu was starting to worry if something similar would happen during the Cultural Research Academy examination in the afternoon as well. "Your papers are being marked by our specialists. It won't take long. Be patient." Old C smiled and continued. "Since the first test is over, let's move on to the second test." With the language test concluded, it's time to start the cultivation test. A group of city guards entered the room. Old Shi said, "During the source opening realm, one needs to open the 9 acupoints. Mouth, nose, ears, and eyes were the basic 7 acupoints. Just because you think your acupoints are opened, it doesn't mean that they are truly open. Begin the test for the first 3 stages." At his order, a glass appeared before each student. Each glass was filled with some unknown liquid. The first 3 acupoints are the mouth and the 2 nose acupoints. It is important that you are able to smell and taste properly. Smell the liquid and determine if it can be consumed. Taste it and try to determine what materials have been added to it. We only use regular materials such as blood of commonly seen beasts, the cooking condiments you can find at your home, and so on. By the way, we have laxatives in our list of ingredients as well. Old Scene differently said, "If you make the wrong decision, you won't make it to the next part of the exam since you'll be spending your time in the toilet instead. Therefore be very careful. For the final step, write down the materials you discovered. This will be the test for the first 3 stages. Also, there might even be some sleeping drugs added in the liquid as well. If you fall asleep after tasting the liquid, you won't be able to take part in the subsequent tests either." A student raised his hand. When he received the permission to speak, he asked, "Teacher, this is different from last year's exam. Last year, the students only needed to answer multiple choice questions. They have 10 choices per question. Are we not doing the same thing this year? Without a list of choices for us to select, the scope of the answers would be too large. You're wasting everyone's time." Old C indifferently said, "If you're willing to take this test, take it. If not, shut up. This is how we're doing things this year. All the cities are being tested the same way. Of course, if you wish to continue wasting your time talking to me, I'm more than willing to continue. I have plenty of time to waste." The students felt even more helpless after hearing that. Su Yu was feeling rather helpless as well. The examination this year was too different from the previous years. Although the overall process was similar, the contents were massively different. Be very careful. Check with your sense of smell before tasting. Only write down your observations after. I promise that none of the materials used are unknown to you. You can even try writing some random materials on the paper. If you're lucky, you might get them right. It's not like third-stage source opening cultivators can fight. Are you intending to showcase your fighting skills instead? If you really want to do that, I'm fine as well. How about this? Have a battle royale here and the final 100 students will pass. Nobody answered. What joke was that? That would be the same as a street brawl. It would be too embarrassing to return from an examination with bruises on their faces. Since Old C promised that no unknown materials were used, the students stopped wasting time. Carefully, Suyu sniffed the liquid in front of him. I think I'm smelling some fire hog blood. He was very sensitive toward blood. Different blood had different smells to it. Race, specialties, and other aspects of the blood owner could all be ascertained from the blood. After a while, Suyu judged that this liquid posed no threat to him. He lifted the glass and tasted a bit of the liquid. Before long, he had his answer. Firehog blood, mundane duck blood, red pepper paste, plain water, butter. Suyu rapidly wrote down the list of materials he tasted. Around him, the other students were also getting started with the test. Some were already writing while some were hesitating to taste the liquid. Manage your time properly, the young proctor reminded once again. Students that are done don't need to wait for the others to finish. Go to the next room to take the next test. At that announcement, a decent number of students stood up. Suyu was one of them. He was afraid that the subsequent tests would have time limitations as well, so he wasted no time after writing down his answers. The 5th floor was massive. Previously, Suyu had thought that there was only one room on the floor. Only now did he find out that there was another room behind the wall. As Suyu and the other students entered the second room, Old She, the woman from the Talent Fostering Bureau, and the person from the Devil's Subduing Army followed them. Chapter 75. A different examination, too, in the second room. About 30 students had entered the room. These were all students above the third stage source opening realm. Of course, there were more students above the third stage as well, but some were still busy studying the liquid provided to them. During the 4th and 5th stages, the ear acupoints will be opened, improving your hearing. Old She was beaming as he walked to the front of the room. You're only at the source opening realm and have never been to the battlefield before. The prefecture won't make any excessive requests of students like you. However, you still need to be able to do what someone with your cultivation level should be capable of. Listen carefully. With that reminder, all the students focused. There seemed to be someone whispering in the room, but they couldn't hear the whispers clearly. Someone is reciting a cultivation method. He will recite it 10 times. Each round will take 5 minutes. The students that arrive late will fail, even if they're at the 7th or 8th stage. They won't get any of the 60 marks they were supposed to get from this test. People who are not good at managing their time and priorities will only bring you down on the battlefield. The students strained their ears and sure enough, someone seemed to be reciting something. Suyu tried listening, but he wasn't able to hear it too clearly. In the crowd, a girl with her hair done in pigtails raised her hand. When Old C nodded, she asked with a frown, "Teacher, what if someone here already knows the cultivation method? They won't even need to listen. Will that be considered cheating?" "Don't worry, none of you know it," Old Some nonchalantly said. "This is a cultivation method newly obtained from a minor race. It has never appeared in Great Zia before. If someone here really knows that cultivation method, then that person must have learned it from the minor race." A sneer appeared on Old Selly's face as he said, "Also, different copies of the same cultivation method might not necessarily be the same. If the copy you've learned from happened to be different from our copy, and is instead the same as the Myriad race cult's copy, I'll have you know that we have been able to capture a decent number of spies through this test each year. I hope none of you will be one of them." Seemingly knowing the doubt these students were feeling, Old She continued, "Are you wondering why I told you all that? Why am I not waiting for the spies to expose themselves? The answer is simple. This minor race has already been exterminated. The cult members serving that race should start considering turning over a new leaf." Suyu couldn't be bothered to listen to Old Sai's words. He was fully focused on the cultivation method being recited. The voice was very indistinct. It was as though he could hear it, but at the same time, it felt like he wasn't hearing anything. Even a single lapse of concentration would result in one missing the voice completely. Thus, One had to fully concentrate to get the entire cultivation method. Su Yu listened while writing and completely ignored everyone else in the room. 5 minutes later, the first round was over. Su Yu checked his paper and saw that he had written down 1/3 of the cultivation method. If he continued at the same pace, he would take around 3 to 5 rounds to complete it. This wasn't a long cultivation method. It only had about 1,000 characters in total. In fact, Su Yu's performance was quite good. Many of them had only written several characters on their papers. They weren't fast enough as they had to listen and write at the same time. As time passed, more and more students entered the second room. Since they were late, it was unlikely that they would be able to write the whole cultivation method down. I can finish it after around 3 to 5 rounds, but how is Hao doing? He better not fall asleep listening to the cultivation method. At the same time, Chen Hao was also taking the hearing test. For some reason, he was pulling his hair in anxiety. He had written a decent number of characters on his paper, but when a random proctor walked by, the proctor found most of the characters unreadable. At a glance, Chen Hao's paper looked impressive with the number of characters on it. But what the hell had he written? Naturally, there were students with even worse performance. They were only able to write several characters on their papers and were sitting on their seats with gloomy expressions. Those with only the relevant cultivation level, but not the ability to utilize their strength, are not worth accepting. That was the proctor's honest thought. Opening the ear acupoints, but completely incapable of utilizing them. If one couldn't even hear the cultivation method being recited, how were they supposed to listen for their enemies on the battlefield? Cultivators like these were useless. After spending 5 years in secondary school, these students were already taught what they should know. Despite the lack of combat experience, these students could actually be considered soldiers after all the training they had gone through. A soldier found lacking in such a basic ability would have no hope of being accepted into a war academy. While the proctor was deep in thought, Chen Hao suddenly raised his hand and complained, "Teacher, can you stop pacing in front of me? Can you walk somewhere else?" The proctor was stunned. However, he soon laughed and said, "This is also a form of a test. On a battlefield, you can encounter all sorts of unexpected situations." Chen Hao rolled his eyes. "If this is really the battlefield, I would have hacked you to death with my saber. Teacher, if you continue pacing in front of me, I'll really have to swing my blade at you." The proctor laughed in amusement. Not far away, the head proctor nodded slightly, signaling the proctor that he could leave Chen Hao now. It was naturally not normal for a proctor to keep pacing in front of a student. However, Chen Hao had been pulling his hair so hard that the proctor decided to pay some attention to him. After the proctor returned to the head proctor, he softly said, "As a whole, those from the capital are performing much better than the local students. None of the capital students are weaker than the 4th stage, while there aren't even that many 4th stage students among the locals. There were only around 400 guest students, while there were around 3,000 local students taking the examination. However, there were fewer local 4th stage cultivators than the guests." The head proctor wasn't surprised. He softly said, "Nanyuan's source qi density is too low. However, this is also good. Nanyuan students might be slower in growth, but as a result they have been able to spend more time building their foundation. Just look at them. Many of the local students are able to write at least several characters down, while a lot of the guest students haven't been able to write anything." The head proctor shook his head. Clearly, he found the guest students' performance embarrassing. Sure, they had higher cultivation levels. However, their growth was so fast, they hadn't been able to stay at the lower stages for long. They only pursued cultivation level instead of the proper usage of their opened acupoints. Because of that, some of the 5th and 6th stage guest students couldn't even do as well as the 4th and 5th stage local students in this test. Meanwhile, Su Yu was on his 5th round and had finally finished writing the cultivation method down. There were a few other students who had completed as well. There were less than 10 of them in total. Out of the 660 students on the 5th floor, less than 10 of them had reached this far. Their only surprise was that some of the 5th and 6th stage guest students were still unable to complete the test. Old Shi did not seem to care about the students that were still listening as he spoke. "Those who are done and are interested in joining the test for those above the 5th stage can come with me." Su Yu and a few others stood up. At the sight of that, some of the surrounding students started getting anxious. Should they continue listening, or should they move on to the next part? What if the next part was the same, where time management was important? Proper time, strength, and energy management. Some of them recalled the reminder given by the young proctor earlier. A few of them clenched their teeth and stood up to join the next test. The hearing test would give a maximum of 60 marks. Should they waste more time listening, or should they move on to get more marks elsewhere? For some of the students above the 5th stage, this was a difficult choice. In fact, after listening to the voice for a while, some were starting to feel dizzy. If this continued, they might not be able to even take the other tests. That would be terrible. After all, for the next test, they were supposed to be able to get 50 marks per cultivation stage, provided they passed the test. That would be more than enough to make up for the marks they were giving up here. Old Shi, who was leading the student to the next venue, had a smile on his face. Choosing was not an easy thing to do. The entrance examination would not test only one's strength and talent. The judgment and decision-making ability of these students would also be tested. If they were going to only test the student's strength, what was the point of the examination? They might as well accept the students based on their cultivation levels alone. Those with higher cultivation might enjoy an unfair advantage in this examination. But it was entirely possible for a 3rd-stage student to score perfect marks in the early tests and be accepted into an academy as well. Nanyuan is still too weak. If they have more 4th and 5th-stage students, the overall result of the locals might even be better than the guest students. While deep in thought, old Sai did not forget to keep his eyes on the students who had caught his attention previously. Suyu had performed well in the tests. He had been decisive during the first test, stopping after only one exchange, and answering the questions related to all 8 of the languages he knew for 80 marks. For that test, he probably had the highest mark in the room. I'm really looking forward to his final score. Will he be able to compete against those geniuses at the capital? The contents of the examinations were standardized for the entire prefecture. The process and grading system were also the same. Thus, Suyu's score could actually be compared against the students of the entire prefecture. Old Silhan was really looking forward to Suyu's final result. In Nanyuan, Suyu was probably the only student who could compete against the geniuses in the capital. The others had no chance as their cultivation level was too low. Strong foundation alone would not be able to make up for the gap in cultivation level. Halfway through the video? Enjoying the story? Subscribe for more. Chapter 76. High, Middle, and Low Tiers. 1. At the 6th and 7th stage source opening realm, a cultivator would open their eye acupoints. There were barely any Nanyuan students with those acupoints opened. In any case, Suyu had not seen any. On the 5th floor, apart from Suyu, those who were still following Old C were all from the capital. He was basically surrounded by guest students. Suyu was curious. Looking at the student who had exchanged papers with him earlier, he asked softly, "Is the 6th or 7th stage source, opening realm, not enough to get through the exam in the capital?" That was somewhat hard to believe. That cultivation level should grant one a decent chance at passing the examination even in the capital, right? The guy first glanced at Old C, and when he saw that Old C did not react, he softly replied, "Those at the 6th or 7th stage source opening realm aren't the best of the best in the capital. They're only middle-tier students. They have a decent chance at passing, but cultivation level isn't everything. Apart from the basic cultivation tests, there are other tests as well. Do you know that?" "Yeah. Riding and archery tests. Those 2 will be tested every year." Suyu nodded. However, he was still doubtful. "But how does that relate to whether one can get through the exam in the capital?" "Of course it does." The young man replied helplessly. "Riding and archery tests are both bonus tests. But in the capital, too many people are good with both. If we take the exam there, we will definitely rank lower and fail to get the bonus marks. Generally, the bonus marks for those 2 tests will only be given to the ones at the top. In the capital, those at the 8th and 9th stage source opening realm will be occupying all the top positions. Nothing will be left for us. Although Nanyuan is a small city, if we can perform well, we can get the bonus marks easier here." Suyu nodded before asking again. "With at least 200 marks, one would be guaranteed to pass. Therefore, apart from the one placing first, it isn't important for others to get more marks, right? It's obvious you're clueless." The young man shook his head and said, "Since you're here, it's obvious your cultivation is above the 5th stage source opening realm. You need to know that sure, 200 marks can help you enter a war academy, but the students accepted will also be given different tiers of evaluation. The students of the various academies are mainly split into 9 tiers. Low, 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 middle, low, high, all the way until the highest tier, high, high. The young man gnashed his teeth and said, "Low-tier students will receive the worst treatment in the academy. They won't be mentored by a teacher. For these students, life is hard in the academy. They might as well not enter the academy. You need at least a middle-tier evaluation to gain more support. Those with less than 300 marks are all considered low-tier students. Therefore, you need at least 300 marks to become a true War Academy student." The young man looked at Su Yu with pity and said, "For the War Academy exam, apart from language and cultivation tests, the practical tests hold the most weight. They give the most bonus marks in the exam. In fact, they give as many bonus marks as the Divine Character test of the Cultural Research Academy exam. Therefore, I'm here at Nanyuan to get a better result and a higher rank for some bonus marks. In the capital, people like us can hardly get any bonus marks." Su Yu finally understood. He nodded before looking at the young woman ahead of him and whispered, "If competition is stiff for those in the 6th and 7th stage source opening realm, how about the 8th stage? Those at that stage should be considered a genius already, right? Why is someone like that here as well?" He could sense a higher source chi density around that young woman. She was at least an 8th stage source opening cultivator. 8th stage? The young man wasn't someone trying to enter a cultural research academy, so he didn't know Wulilan well. When he followed Su Yu's gaze, he hesitated and said, "I'm not sure. Is she here to get first place?" "A cultivation like that will make her a genius even in the capital. Maybe she only has a high cultivation level and is bad at everything else. That's why she's here to guarantee a pass." At that moment, they finally arrived at the next room, so Su Yu stopped asking questions. Looking at the students behind him, Old C calmly said, "For the 6th and 7th stage source opening realm, you can gain a total of 80 marks. This test is simple. You only need to have a fast reaction time. 100 balls will be shot at you. Among them, 80 are red while 20 are white. You will gain a mark for every red ball you catch, and lose a mark for every white ball you catch. You need to catch the balls as fast as possible. If you can't determine their color in time, just catch them all. You can probably get at least 60 marks doing that. That's better than missing too many red balls." In front of them were 5 small rooms. There were only about 10 students left, so they only needed around 2 rounds to finish this test. Old C added, "The duration is only 2 minutes. On average, 1 ball will be shot per second. Again, remember to manage your strength and energy well. You need to know that even giving up can be harder than persevering. If you spend too much energy here, I'm afraid that you might not be able to last through the remaining tests." None of the students said anything. This test was not anything excessive. There were several ways a 6th or 7th stage source opening cultivator could be tested. This test in particular had been used several times before. In fact, the various middle schools will also provide relevant training to prepare their students for this test. Of course, the so-called relevant training was only provided in the capital. Here in Nanyuan, the students would only be told about the tests. However, no training would be given to prepare them. It wasn't that Nanyuan did not care about the tests, but there were hardly any 6th or 7th stage source opening students in Nanyuan. Thus, there was never any need to prepare their students for this test. 5 of you, go, don't waste time." Old C ordered as he pointed at 5 of the students. The staff members around them started getting ready for the test. Su Yu wasn't selected, but he was still paying close attention to everything that was going on. Prior to this, he had not been trained in anything related to this test. His recent progress had simply been too fast, that he didn't have the chance to do any additional training. The 5 selected students looked nervous. They did as told and entered the 5 rooms. The moment they walked inside the rooms, the machines in the rooms started shooting balls at them. Pop! One of the students was struck in the head by the very first ball. Old Shi frowned and said, "If you can't react fast enough, you'll injure yourself. Decide for yourself if you should give up on this test." He had barely finished speaking when the second barrage began. The balls moved rapidly, carrying quite a lot of force behind them. Apart from the student who was struck by the first ball, the other students seemed to be handling things well. However, they still couldn't stop their bodies from instinctively catching some of the white balls. After all, the balls were moving too fast and they had to both determine the color of the balls and catch them at the same time. The balls weren't always shot in a straight line. At times, the trajectories would change into curves, forcing the students to run all over their respective rooms. In less than 1 minute, all 5 of them were already panting heavily. One of them had a bruised face. He was the one who had been struck by several balls. Suyu was silently calculating for the worst-performing student, and couldn't help but to sigh. 32 red balls and 8 white balls for a total of 24 marks. He couldn't determine if that student was at the 5th or 6th stage, but it didn't matter as that student would probably fail to get even 30 marks. He also finally understood why some students weren't able to obtain the maximum marks for their cultivation level in the examination. He then shifted his gaze to the young woman in a different room. That young woman was doing very well. In 1 minute, around 50 balls had been shot out. The young woman had captured 42 balls, with all of them being red balls. That signified that she had gotten full marks for every single ball she had captured. Something isn't right. Suyu could see how difficult this test was. One's mind must be as responsive as one's body. The young woman seemed to be having an easy time on this test. From how she was able to accurately determine the color of the balls, she clearly had powerful willpower as well. She has strong willpower. She was probably someone preparing to enter a cultural research academy as well. Suyu was confident he would be able to capture the red balls accurately as well. His willpower wasn't weak. In fact, the 1-second gap between each ball was rather long for him. That was more than enough for him to determine the color of the ball before catching it. But seeing how the young woman was performing, he realized that the competition for first place would be quite stiff. And this was only one of the examination floors. There were 4 other floors, so who knew if there were better students elsewhere? While he was thinking, 2 minutes passed. One of the students gave up halfway through the test. Old Shi did not mind. When the 5 came out of the rooms, he announced, 80 marks, 65 marks, 60 marks, 32 marks, 24 marks. Those were the results of the 5 students. Compared to the previous tests, this test was much more straightforward. The student with only 24 marks looked rather dispirited. He was a 6th-stage source opening cultivator. With his cultivation level, he should get at least 30 marks. However, he lost 6 marks just like that. The other students weren't looking too well either. Those at the 7th-stage source opening realm should be able to get 80 marks. But apart from the young woman, none of them had been able to get full marks. Next, Old C pointed at 5 different students, including Suyu. They hurriedly entered the rooms. Next, the machines started shooting the balls again. Inside the room, Suyu had not received any relevant training, but with the first group serving as the example, he had a rough idea of what to expect. He released a small portion of his willpower and focused on the machine. The moment the ball appeared, he could see its color and trajectory. Pop! A ball smashed into his palm. He casually tossed the ball into the side. That was a red ball. Suyu activated his eye acupoints, causing his eyes to glow slightly, granting himself a better eyesight. With a willpower, it's like I am cheating. Of course, I can use it since it's a part of my ability, but maybe I should try not using my willpower here. He stopped using his willpower and tried relying only on his eyes. Even without his willpower, he still wasn't having much trouble with the balls. He had a decent reaction time due to the years he had spent training his body with foundational martial techniques, and since he had been practicing the lightning source blade recently, he had even tempered the acupoints in his arms, allowing him to catch the balls with relative ease. Chapter 77. High, middle, and low tiers 2 outside. Old Shi nodded with a smile. He could sense Suyu using willpower earlier. Strictly speaking, that could be considered cheating, but since willpower was something he had cultivated himself, Old C did not say anything about it. But Suyu stopped using his willpower after the first ball. Old C was pleased to see that. Of course, a student was free to use whatever ability they had. Even so, that didn't mean he wouldn't look down on them for using that ability. For example, the previous student, Wulan, was one such student. Old Shi did not really like her that much even though she had obtained full marks for the test. This was a War Academy examination meant to test a student's cultivation level. What was the point of using her willpower here? So what if her willpower was strong? If she was going to use her willpower, she should just go take the Cultural Research Academy examination. For war academies, they placed more emphasis on one's physical cultivation, not willpower. 2 minutes later, Su Yu left the room while gasping for breath. Old Sai smiled and said, "Not bad. You got the full 80 mark. You look somewhat sorry, but you have obtained the maximum marks you can get from this test. Despite your rapid growth, it's clear you have not neglected your foundation since you can get full marks here. Looks like you have not wasted your 5 years in secondary school." Old Soin had a big smile on his face, showing an entirely different reaction to Su Yu, who had gotten full marks just like Wu Lan. Not far away, Wu Lan's face fell. Old Shi had not said anything about her even though she had gotten full marks as well. He only announced her score and moved on. She was a prideful person. Thus, she couldn't help but to say, "Teacher, getting 80 marks is the bare minimum at the capital." Old Si indifferently said, "Yeah, but this is not the capital. Furthermore, certain someone wouldn't have been able to get 80 marks relying on physical cultivation alone." He then muttered to himself, "What is this little girl doing here? She's not trying to enter a war academy, but she's here to waste our resources." Wu Lan was rendered speechless. Old Sai knew very well that there was still a chance Su Yu might join a war academy, while that was impossible for this little girl. She would most likely end up in a cultural research academy. Since there was no hope, he couldn't even be bothered to try recruiting her. After all, she was the younger sister of a genius instructor at the Great Zia Cultural Research Academy. That information could be seen on her profile. Old Sunni did not care enough about them to give the girl a differential treatment. It didn't matter how proud this girl was. Not everyone cared about her background. Old CA himself was a Skyzor expert. There was no need for him to fear this little girl's elder sister. Of course, this was merely an examination, and there was no need for him to offend them here. But there also wasn't a need for him to curry favors with them. He only needed to do his job. Would Wu Qi really make trouble for him because of something minor like this? Did they really think that the martial dragon guards were pushovers? Old Sai did not care about the little girl and her elder sister. Su Yu could feel the gazes on him, and he did not know whether to laugh or cry. This old Si was quite a realistic person. He was trying to recruit Su Yu, so he did not mind praising Su Yu in front of all the students. But wasn't that the same as inviting the ire of other students on him? Of course, Su Yu didn't really mind their ire. Good results and a teacher's praise were the things he had earned with his own ability. There was no need to pay too much attention to what others thought of him. After a while, old Zhang checked the time and said, "This is the end of the tests for the first 7 stages of the source opening realm, including the 100 marks awarded by the language test. A total of 270 marks have been offered so far. There are still 100 to grab for the tests involving the 8th and 9th stages. The riding and archery tests will also offer 100 marks as well. Including your merit points, you can get over 600 marks in this exam." Old Sui then looked at Su Yu and smiled. "Su Yu, only those with 600 marks and above will be evaluated as high-tier students in the war academies. In fact, high-tier students are very rare. You're only an 8th stage source opening cultivator. Even if you have a lot of merit points, you might not be able to become a high-tier student. One only needed 200 marks to pass the examination. However, those below 300 marks would all be considered low-tier students. Those between 300 to 600 marks would be considered middle-tier students. Only those above 600 marks would be evaluated as high-tier students." After making a short calculation, Su Yu felt somewhat disheartened. It did seem like he might not be able to become a high-tier student. He had not been able to get full marks for the language test. Even if he had gotten all the questions he answered right, and proceeded to get full marks in all the subsequent tests, he would still have only 250 marks so far. The 10 merit points he had earned outside of those he earned from certified languages would also grant him an additional 100 marks, giving him a total of 350 marks so far. "I need to get full marks in all the following tests to even reach 600 marks. That was the conclusion Su Yu reached. And even with that, he would still be at the bottom of the high-tier students with an evaluation of high-low. Curious, Su Yu asked, "Teacher, how about the high-high students? How many marks do one need to get to receive that evaluation?" "We'll talk while we walk. We're going to the next exam venue. The students of all 5 floors will be gathered there as well. While walking, Old C said, "You grew up in Nenuan and you know too little. Your teachers have not been telling you much because they were afraid that you would lose confidence after learning about the world. In former years, even the best Nenuan student couldn't get an evaluation higher than the middle tier. As far as your teachers are concerned, there is no need for you to know too much. You can answer your own question with a simple calculation. To get a high evaluation, you will need at least 800 marks." Su Yu frowned. "But even a 9th stage source opening cultivator with full marks in all tests can't get 800 marks. Exactly. Therefore, only great strength cultivators can get the high evaluation. Those fellows with high evaluation are all people with high cultivation level and plentiful merit points. That is why they can get such a high score in the exam. Don't worry about it too much. Those fellows are all freaks. Of course, some of them are fake geniuses," Old Songi spoke bluntly. "Some of them use source chi liquid like plain water, exhausting valuable resources for limited gains. These people will be worthless, even with a high evaluation. The academy will not give too much help to a useless person regardless of that person's evaluation. At the academy, some experts would rather accept a 7th stage source opening student from a small city as a personal disciple than a great strength cultivator from a big clan. Sure, they can gain additional benefits from the big clans, but these experts are strong enough that they don't really care about the benefits those clans could offer. Thus, these fake geniuses won't really have it easy after entering an academy." Old Shi was extremely blunt. If this was the capital instead, he would probably be subjected to a great pressure just for the words he had just spoken earlier. Behind them, Wu Lan was feeling somewhat unhappy. She said, "Teacher, not all students from big clans are like that." Old Sai indifferently said, "Did I say that all of them are like that? I'm only trying to give the regular students some confidence. For example, for the Cultural Research Academy exam, some exam takers would have formed a divine character already. With that divine character alone, they can probably gain hundreds of bonus marks. Will that be fair for the other students? People from small cities don't know much about divine characters, while those from the capital can start studying willpower texts as young as 7 years old. How are those from the smaller cities supposed to compete against those from the capital? Those from the capital are only better thanks to their parents and elders. Of course, I won't deny their hard work. For example, I will give my children the best as well. However, only childish and incompetent cultivators will constantly compare themselves against those from the smaller cities at such an early stage of cultivation. What's the point of competing this early? Wait 5 years or 10 years before competing. At that point, you will all be on an equal playing field. If someone from a regular family spends over 10 years cultivating with nothing to show from it, that can only mean that this person's talent is mediocre as well. What's the point of victory if you're only competing against those with a different starting point when all of you have barely left the starting point in the first place? Are you proud? Proud of yourself for having a strong father and mother? Only weaklings and cowards will think like that. True geniuses will not compete against those who are weaker. They are all busy aiming for a higher height." Old C's tone changed slightly as he continued. For example, Wu Qi from the Cultural Research Academy. She is definitely not competing against Liu Hong. Instead, she is competing against Xia Yuan of the Xia clan. The bigger your heart is, the bigger your worldview would be, and the further you can go. If you really want to compete against true geniuses. Su Yu, are you going to compete against your friend Chen Hao if you want to prove yourself? Old Sai smiled. Of course, you're still too young to understand all this. It doesn't matter. One day you'll understand. This examination is only a competition between those who are just starting out on the path of cultivation. This is the time when you're showcasing more of your parents' ability than your own ability. But at the Sky Soar, Cloud Breach, or the Mountain Sea realms, what can your parents do to help you even if they are invincible experts? More resources, more pointers? At that level of cultivation, everyone walks their own path. Resources and pointers no longer mean that much. If you're really capable, you won't lack any of that. You can only rely on yourself, not your parents. All the students sank into silence. Wu Lan also sank into a long silence. After a while, she softly said, "Thank you for the guidance, teacher." "I'm not guiding you," Old C denied. He nonchalantly said, "It's not my place to guide you either. I only want to say that you must stay true to yourself, and don't let yourself be distracted by all that nonsense. As a willpower cultivator, if you can't even take some harsh words, you might as well stop cultivating. You will never be able to reach the Sky Soar realm that way." If Liu Wenyan was such a weak-minded person, would he be able to last until he was 70 before he eventually advanced? He would have killed himself decades ago. At that point, they had arrived at the next examination venue. Old C gave them a last piece of advice. Both cultural research and war academies exist for the human race. Competition is necessary, but do not let your life be filled with envy and hatred. 5 years later, when you're already a Sky Soul cultivator while your rival is still stuck at a lower cultivation level, you will notice that all those negative feelings you harbor before are nothing but a joke. Finally, Old Xi stopped walking. Su Yu and the other students could no longer focus on what Old Xi was saying. All of them were dumbfounded by what they were looking at. Ahead of them were 10 massive demon beasts. These beasts were actually alive. None of them had expected to see such beasts in anyone. "What are you doing standing there like a fool?" "These are among the weakest beasts in existence, the Cloud Rush horse. For the riding test, you naturally need to ride a beast. Did you really think that we'll have you ride your family's donkey or something like that? For the test, get on a beast and ride it around the field. If you can make a full circle, you will receive full marks." This is too easy. I stopped riding these little beasts decades ago. Old Sai looked proud when he made that statement. These were among the weakest demon beasts in existence. Most people wouldn't even bother using them as mounts. If you fall from your mount or fail to make a complete circle, you will receive less marks. Even if you have never seen or rode a beast before, don't worry. Just remember to grab onto their fur tightly. It's also easy to control them. Just do what you were taught with regular horses. Su Yu remained silent. At school they rode actual horses, not beasts. There were riding and archery lessons in each secondary school, but students from the smaller cities had less chance of actually using what they learned. Even though Su Yu had attended those lessons before, he wasn't exactly proficient with riding. Things were looking even worse since he had to ride one of these gigantic beasts instead. 50 marks for making a complete circle on one of these beasts. Go on, stop wasting time. There are a lot of you here. Those who were here first will go first. Each of you has a time limit of 3 minutes. We only have 10 fields while there are 2,000 of you here. We don't have much time left, so those who are late will receive 0 marks. Get going already. Stop wasting time. 10 fields were more than enough as even now. A lot of the students were still stuck at the second test. There were also some who were still stuck at the third test. The proctors had reminded the students multiple times that they needed to manage their time and energy properly. Those who failed to do so deserved to fail the examination. Su Yu and the others did not dare to waste any time. Some students were already on the fields attempting the test. Not long after arriving, Su Yu saw a student being thrown off a mount. A proctor caught him before he fell to the ground and casually tossed him aside. 5 marks. Next. From the look of things, it did not seem like the students would need 3 minutes. On average, each student would only last around 30 seconds. Su Yu wanted to wait and see, but old Huang pointed at him and said, "Su Yu, it's your turn. You need to fight for everything. If you're unwilling to fight, how are you supposed to surpass others? I have high expectations for you. Get a high-tier evaluation and prove to everyone that even a small city can produce geniuses." At that, many other proctors looked in their direction. High-tier evaluation? Could Nenyuan really produce a high-tier student? Was Old C drunk or something? Chapter 78. Be more sincere. One gaze after another landed on them. Even if Su Yu was someone with a stronger mental fortitude than his peers, he still felt uncomfortable. What was this reaction? Could Nenyuan not produce a genius? They were standing on Nenyuan soil. Nenyuan was not without talents. Nenyuan was not a place filled with trash. It only appeared weak because of the low source chi density here, rendering it an unsuitable place for cultivation. All his schoolmates had worked hard in their cultivation as well. Which of them was lazy in their cultivation? Even someone like Chen Hao had been spending 7 or 8 hours every day on his cultivation. The only thing restricting them was their environment, nothing else. Su Yu did not show his displeasure. He knew that those people wouldn't understand. He also knew that nobody would pity them. Nanyuan being weak was a problem for the locals. They could only blame themselves for being born here. These people from the capital would simply tell them to go to the capital if they were so unhappy with their environment. After all, nobody was stopping them from leaving. This was perhaps the perfect example of a let-them-eat-meat situation, a phrase spoken by an ancient emperor when being told that the peasants had no rice to eat. Su Yu calmed his agitation. In truth, he also disliked hearing these people repeating over and over again that small cities can also produce geniuses. The term small city was being used repeatedly. Even if they meant well, Su Yu still felt uncomfortable listening to it. Nanyuan was his hometown. A local could always talk bad about their hometown, but it was unacceptable for outsiders to come and look down on them with all those thoughtless remarks. The proctors weren't looking at him with malice, but for Su Yu their gazes felt as uncomfortable as having a bone stuck in his throat. This is my first time riding a beast. Su Yu suppressed his emotions and smiled. Don't mind me if I do anything wrong. He then stomped his foot on the ground and jumped onto the back of a cloudrush horse. After grabbing onto the fur on the back of the beast, Su Yu slapped the back of the beast and urged it forward. He was able to stay on the beast with his legs clamped tightly around its torso. Even after riding a full circle on the field, Su Yu still didn't look like he was going to fall. Nearby, many students started talking to each other. The cloudrush horse seems to be frightened. It's running too fast. A student won't receive full marks without properly stopping the beast, right? A proctor heard the question and answered, "Of course. Marks will be deducted if a student can't stop properly." The moment the proctor said that, Su Yu lightly patted his mount's neck. The cloudrush horse started slowing down before fully stopping. It then lowered its body, allowing Su Yu to jump down. With a smile on his face, Su Yu said, "Wow, that was easy. I'll admit that I was kind of afraid earlier because I've never seen these beasts before." The students did not have that big of a reaction to Su Yu's performance, but the proctors couldn't resist getting a second look at Su Yu. Old Shi's eyes flickered as he stood there in silence. A middle-aged man who was the leader of the Great Xia War Academy's delegation walked over and looked at Su Yu. A smile appeared on his stern face. Old Shi saw the newcomer as well. He smirked and said, "This is a descendant of a devil-subduing army veteran. He won't be yours." The newcomer did not seem to mind. He calmly said, "He's merely someone who has seen blood before. There's nothing special about that. We have plenty of students like this in the academy. Only your martial dragon war academy will treat someone like this as treasure. I'll wait and see before doing anything." Earlier, the cloudrush horse had been frightened by Su Yu's sudden movement, so it had been running frantically. That angered Su Yu, and he unintentionally released some killing intent toward the beast. Someone who had killed before was different from someone who hadn't. As a beast, the cloudrush horse was able to sense the threat of death. Thus, it obediently stopped when ordered. The students did not realize all that, but the proctors were able to see everything clearly. The middle-aged man said, "8th stage source opening realm. This is actually very good for a student from Nanyuan, but from your words earlier, you seem to believe that he can obtain a high-tier evaluation." Old C was all smiles as he replied, "It doesn't matter. He won't be joining your academy. Shi-Chi, stop being so cautious toward me." The middle-aged man smiled. "The Martial Dragon War Academy sees us as its rival. But the rival of the Great Xia War Academy has never been the Martial Dragon War Academy," Old C nonchalantly said. "We'll first surpass you. Then we'll surpass the Cultural Research Academy. Look at your garbage performance. Physical cultivation has been stronger than willpower cultivation for centuries. But that changed after your generation took over the reins. Are you not embarrassed?" The middle-aged man frowned. "If it wasn't for the Martial Dragon War Academy competing over students and resources with us all these years, and the prefect's bias, we wouldn't have been weakened so much that the Cultural Research Academy was able to surpass us. Yes, blame others for your incompetence," Old C said with disdain. Why was the Martial Dragon War Academy built back then? Are you pretending to not know? The War Academy was stagnant, and the quality of students was dropping each year. Fewer and fewer experts were produced yearly despite the large amount of resources used by your academy. Because of that, no new generation has risen to take over the mantle from the older generation. If it was up to me, your academy should have been shut down long ago. Why don't you repeat those words at the Breeksea house? What about it? Old C.I. replied unyieldingly. What are you going to do about it? You guys are only good at using the previous generation to threaten us. But have you forgotten that they have gained their strength over a period of 300 years? They did not gain their strength during the decades you guys were running the academy. Just wait. Our recent students are as good as your students. Before long, there will be a new #1 War Academy in Great Zia. As for the Great Zia War Academy, you can change your name to Garbage War Academy. The middle-aged man's eyes turned sharp as he stared at Old Scene. Not to be outdone, Old Scene stared at him as well. After a short while, the middle-aged man snorted. Do you believe that he can become a high-tier student? I doubt so. I've seen his results. He did decently in the previous tests to get a total of 250 marks. Including the 50 marks from this test and the 100 marks from his merit points, he has a total of 400 marks. But there are still the 8th stage, archery and practical combat tests to go through. There are 200 marks to grab there, and he will need to get full marks in all 3 to accumulate just enough marks to become a high-tier student. Old Shi smiled. So, he'll get full marks in them. Can he get full marks in the archery test? The middle-aged man asked. How many times has he used a bow before? Nanyuan has always been weak. Their middle schools aren't the best either. Are you sure he can get full marks? Old Sai wasn't too sure either. However, now wasn't the time for him to show weakness, so he smiled and said, I believe in him. The two glared at each other for a while before the middle-aged man decided to ignore the stubborn and delusional old man. Suddenly, Old C shouted, Su Yu, this fellow from the Great Zia War Academy, is looking down on you. He said that you will never be able to get a high-tier evaluation. As someone from the military, we can't swallow this insult. During the archery test later, score full marks and shut his mouth. Su Yu looked over and saw that the two were glaring at each other. An idea appeared in his mind as he asked, Teacher, will high-tier students receive any special rewards? Huh? Old C.I. blanked out slightly. He answered, You will naturally be rewarded after entering the academy. You will receive special support. I'm referring to this examination. Will I get special rewards for being a high-tier student? Old C thought for a bit before answering with a smile. There is no such policy in the Martial Dragon War Academy. However, the Great Zia War Academy is rich. Each year they willingly waste an untold amount of resources. If you manage to become a high-tier student, they probably won't mind giving you a couple hundred drops of source chi liquid. The hostile atmosphere instantly vanished. The middle-aged man from the Great Zia War Academy glanced at Old Sai before indifferently saying, Chi, since you're so confident, why don't you dip into your pocket as well? If I'm remembering things right, as a head proctor, you will receive a payment of 50 merit points and 5 drops of Sky Soul blood essence. Why don't you take something out to encourage the young man? Old Sai cursed inwardly. As far as he was concerned, he was a poor guy who was having difficulty getting by. Although the Martial Dragon War Academy was backed by Zia Longwu, they were not as rich as the Great Zia War Academy. After all, the Great Zia War Academy had existed for hundreds of years. There was no comparing the two, but then again, Su Yu probably wouldn't be able to get a high-tier evaluation, right? After all, he still needed a lot of marks for that. He needed to get full marks in all subsequent tests. A single moment of carelessness would result in a reduction of his score. With so many people looking at them, Old Z couldn't do anything that would embarrass the Martial Dragon War Academy. At that thought, he smiled and said, I'm poor. After all, I'm not as good at money-making as you. So you, how about this? I'll give you 10 merit points if you manage to become a high-tier student. Consider that my gift to congratulate you. As the son of a devil-subduing army veteran, we're family. I don't mind parting with the little wealth I have for you. What a miser! Countless people were cursing inwardly. It was rather unlikely for Suyu to actually get a high-tier evaluation, yet this fellow was still being so miserly. Were 10 merit points really that much? There was a 99% chance he wouldn't even need to give that reward out. In that case, couldn't he offer a bigger number to protect the reputation of his academy? Old C hurriedly changed the topic. I'll give you 10 merit points. This fellow will give you 10 merit points as well. Both of us will be paying out of our own pocket. Whoever dares to claim the points as expenses will call the other person Granddaddy. What do you think? In truth, he didn't really expect Suyu to be able to claim the promised rewards. This was merely a joke for him. However, Suyu seriously asked, "Teacher, are you serious?" Old Shi was speechless. Did this kid really think that he could get the promised 20 merit points? Of course. It's only 10 merit points. I can't give you more, but I can get 10 merit points easily by killing a random infinite strength enemy. Why would I lie to you? Suyu nodded and stopped asking. He started calculating. If he couldn't get full marks for the next tests, he would try to break through into the 9th stage before the examination was over. He was not very far away from breakthrough. As a brand new 9th stage source opening cultivator, he was confident he could get at least 30 marks for that stage, even if he couldn't get the full 50 marks. With that, it wouldn't be hard for him to get a high-tier evaluation. Chapter 79. Be more sincere too. Before long, everyone put the incident behind them. It was no big deal. They merely had a couple of proctors that didn't get along with each other. People like Suyu, who were done with the test, followed Old Shi to the next venue. Wulan, who had not spoken a single word to Suyu before, suddenly stopped walking. She waited until Suyu was near before asking, "Are you trying to enter a war academy?" "I'll decide after the exam." Suyu was confused. He didn't know this person, so he had no idea why she was talking to him. However, he remembered that she was one of those who were sizing him up outside the building earlier. Since this person was a willpower cultivator, she was probably here due to Bai Feng. If you don't intend to enter a war academy, there is no need to grab the spotlight here. Wu Lan solemnly advised, the war academies and the Cultural Research Academy have never got along well. It is completely unnecessary for you to perform so well in a war academy exam. If the Cultural Research Academy found out what you did here, Suyu blanked out slightly before smiling. Will they actually create trouble for me just because of this? You never know. Suyu laughed even harder. Is the Cultural Research Academy really so petty? They can't even accept a student doing well in an exam. If that's really the case, only a fool would enter the academy. If they're really that petty, there is no point joining such an academy. And if that's really the case, I'll definitely join a war academy instead. Is this real, or is this your conjecture? If it's real, I'll advise you to not join the Cultural Research Academy as well. Is an academy like this worth joining? We haven't even entered, and someone has already turned hostile on us just because we're performing too well in this exam. Has the Great Zia Cultural Research Academy fallen so low? That is completely different from the academy I imagined. It is rotten to the core, in my opinion. You should give up on joining it as well. Wulan was momentarily speechless. After a while she said, "No, that's not the case. I was trying to say that there is already a record of your profile in the academy. Because of that, some people there have developed an unfavorable opinion of you. In that case, are you one of them?" And no. Wulan's face turned cold and said, "I'm only here to take a look at Assistant Bai Feng's personal student. I am completely uninterested in being a personal student of that person." Suyu did not press on. He merely smiled and asked, "So are you telling the truth? If I perform well here, I'll offend some people in the academy." "I don't know." That was a guess, but it was an educated guess. With a good performance, some teachers will suggest that you join a war academy. For example, after getting a high-tier evaluation here, you will be offered to join a war academy. You will find a number of options available for you dropping. Why? Proper talent distribution. With you out of the way, a slot for the Cultural Research Academy will be opened. A lot of people are aware that Assistant Bai Feng has accepted you as a student. If you can't even get into the academy, he will be reduced to a joke. If you refuse the suggestion and insist on joining a Cultural Research Academy, you will look like someone who doesn't even know yourself well. As an outstanding physical cultivator, Why are you insisting on entering a cultural research academy? You will only reduce the opinion of all academies toward yourself. What if I can get an excellent result in the cultural research exam as well? Wu Lan looked at him with an odd expression. Do you think that it's so easy to obtain a high-tier evaluation in the cultural research exam? I'll be frank. The war exam's high-tier evaluation is much easier to get. Here, luck will play a big role as well, but that is different for the cultural research exam. There, you can only rely on your ability. I think I'm quite capable. Su Yu did not bother trying to act humble. He seriously said, I think I can do even better in an exam where luck plays no role. She decided to ignore him and walk away. Shortly after they arrived at the archery room, old Xiai was still with them. In fact, he was already done with his part of the examination. The subsequent tests had nothing to do with him. However, he continued following them. He said, for this test, your strength and mental resilience will be challenged. The targets will be placed at 3 spots: 50 meters away, 100 meters away, and 300 meters away. The targets are all stationary. You will get 5 marks for hitting the center of the 50-meter target, 15 marks for hitting the center of the 100-meter target, and 30 marks for hitting the center of the 300-meter target. If you have been practicing your basics well, you can get at least 20 marks. Only the final 30 marks will pose some difficulty for you. You will get 3 attempts for each target. Even if you can't hit the center, you will still receive some marks for hitting the target. Your best out of 3 scores will be chosen as the result. In short, you get 9 arrows. You need to hit the center at least 3 times to get full marks. Old Shi looked at Su Yu and smiled. Su Yu, do you get a lot of archery training here in Nanyuan? Not really. We only practice once per week. Also, we only practice with 100-meter targets. Su Yu was telling the truth. At Nanyuan, no archery training for a distance of 300 meters had ever been provided. That was pointless, as third-stage source opening cultivators did not have enough arm strength to shoot that far. Old Shi suddenly coughed, looking like he was holding back a laugh. Su Yu was confident the old man almost laughed. This shameless old man must be happy thinking that he no longer needed to reward Su Yu with the 10 merit points he promised. Suddenly someone called Su Yu. Not far away, Chen Hao was shouting in excitement. You're here as well. Why are you so slow? I thought you'd finished earlier. Chen Hao ran over in excitement and said, why are you slower than me? Did you waste too much time on the hearing part? Su Yu thought for a bit and answered, no. I was able to complete that test quickly. I think I got full marks for that. I also went to the test for the 6th and 7th stage source opening realm. I got 80 marks here. I then went to the writing test. I think I got 50 marks there. I must have taken 2 more tests than you, so I now have 130 more marks than you. That's only if you got the same marks as me in all the previous tests. Chen Hao slowed down as his face turned sullen. Su Yu had taken a few more tests than him. Just a moment ago, he had been feeling very excited to learn that he was actually faster than Su Yu. After all, he had been here for quite a while, but it turned out that Su Yu's extra marks were probably already higher than his total marks. That was so unfair, Su Yu smiled. Have you done the archery test? Nope, he gloomily said. I just arrived not long ago. How did you do in your previous tests? I think I'm going to pass the 3 basic compulsory tests. Chen Hao was unsure. 3rd stage source opening cultivators need to do the smelling and tasting test, right? I think I got everything right there. You know me, I'm a foodie. I can determine what's in the liquid easily. As for the hearing test for 4th and 5th stage source opening cultivators, I think I wrote the correct things down. Chen Hao added unconfidently, I think so. Even the proctor praised me. Really? Su Yu found that hard to believe. Yes. The proctor said that even if there were any mistakes, he wouldn't be able to see them. Doesn't that mean that there were no mistakes? Su Yu thought for a bit, and finally understood what the proctor meant. Wait, did Chen Hao take that as a praise? The proctor was probably trying to say that Chen Hao's writing was too ugly. Even if there were wrong answers, the proctor wouldn't be able to see them since the writing was unreadable. Su Yu did not know whether to laugh or cry. He nodded and said, That's good to hear. So you haven't done the writing test? After doing the archery test, go do the writing test. They have a couple of big horses there. Don't be afraid, and just ride one of them. If the horse refuses to listen, just start imagining yourself roasting and eating it. Even horses will bully cowards. Just don't show any fear. All right. Chen Hao had not seen the Cloud Rush horses yet, so he was still nonchalant about it. He wasn't afraid of a big horse. He was a much more active student than Su Yu, so he had been riding the horses in the school frequently. While the two spoke, a proctor shouted, "You, come here! It's your turn! Are you skipping this test?" Chen Hao hurriedly ran over. Meanwhile, Su Yu's group was still waiting in line. Chen Hao had practiced archery for a much longer time than Su Yu. He did not like reading, and would spend a lot of his time in the archery room. With a bow and arrow in hand, he unhesitatingly drew the bowstring and unleashed the arrow. The arrow whistled through the air and struck the center of the 50-meter target. With his good eyesight, Su Yu was able to see the target clearly. When Chen Hao was using a bow, he no longer looked like a silly and honest kid. Instead, he looked incomparably serious. Once again, he drew the bowstring and unleashed another whistling arrow. 100 meters away, his arrow struck the center of the target. Even Old C nodded and praised. Slightly weak cultivation, but strong foundation. As someone who had yet to open his eye acupoints, the target 300 meters away posed quite a challenge to Chen Hao. He drew his bowstrings and took aim. Even after a while, his arrow remained unreleased. Before long, he was sweating all over. He was running out of stamina. However, he was still trying to determine the general direction of the center and study the wind movement. Although he was only a 5th-stage source opening cultivator, he had a good physical build. He was able to keep the bowstring drawn for a short time while still keeping his grip stable. Su Yu could see the beads of sweat on Chen Hao's forehead. He started feeling nervous, worried that Chen Hao would tire himself too much here and affect his subsequent tests. Abruptly, the arrow whistled out and struck the distant target. Slight deviation from the center. -10 marks, Old Shi muttered to himself. Meanwhile, Su Yu was relieved. Chen Hao did pretty well. He had gotten 40 marks in the archery test. That was much better than Su Yu had imagined. Chen Hao was not vexed. Rather, he looked rather excited. When he looked at Su Yu again, he had a wide smile on his face. He had not expected himself to hit the final target. Thus, the 20 extra marks were basically free marks for him. Chapter 80. Be More Sincere 3. Before long, it was Su Yu's turn. For the 50-meter target, Su Yu was able to see the center clearly. He drew his bowstring and released his arrow, easily hitting the center of the target. The same scene repeated for the 100-meter target. Even when Su Yu wasn't actively using his willpower, his analytical ability would still be greatly enhanced due to his willpower cultivation. Thus, he was able to easily hit the center of the first 2 targets, but the final target was somewhat challenging. Like Chen Hao, Su Yu drew his bowstring, aimed, and paused to think. Unlike Chen Hao, he did not sweat. After all, he was an 8th-stage source opening cultivator. Then, he released the arrow. Old Shi paid close attention to the arrow. After a moment, he exhaled in relief. However, he also felt somewhat regretful. What a pity. It's only a little bit off the center. He will probably have around 3 to 5 marks deducted. Su Yu's arrow had deviated from the center by less than a centimeter. He would have a few marks deducted from his score. With this, he would no longer be able to get a high-tier evaluation. Old Shi was relieved to save his 10 merit points, but he was also regretful that Su Yu couldn't get a high-tier evaluation. That would result in a great difference in treatment after joining an academy. However, this kid could probably be re-evaluated as a high-tier student after entering the academy due to his willpower. When they saw him missing the center, some were regretful while some were relieved. Su Yu was not regretful. Instead, he felt much more at ease. He was happy just hitting the target. He had not spent much time on archery practice, so he had to rely on his eye acupoints and willpower to even hit the target. In terms of archery skills alone, he wasn't even as good as Chen Hao. That fellow had hit his targets relying purely on his archery skills. You no longer have any chance of getting a high-tier evaluation, Old Shi said to Su Yu with a regretful tone. Su Yu merely smiled calmly. He was a tiny bit away from reaching the 9th-stage source opening realm. He had activated the book in his head for over 10 days in a row. He could feel his 9th acupoint loosening up during his previous cultivation session. He had only stopped because he was almost out of blood essence. But now, Since he would be getting the free 20 merit points, he might as well use more blood essence and push himself to the next stage. Source Chi liquid could be purchased at 100,000 per drop. When using merit points, one only needed 5 merit points per trio. Su Yu still had 7 merit points with him. The rewards from killing the Great Strength and Infinite Strength cult members were still untouched. Teacher Xi, is the practical combat test the test for the 8th stage source opening realm? You're right. Old C nodded. At the 8th stage, a source opening cultivator will start gaining true combat strength. Thus, the test for 8th stage students will be different. The other students only need to demonstrate their known martial technique, while you guys will need to engage in real combat. 5 proctors will be supervising the combat, and each will give you a score for your performance. The average of all 5 scores will be taken as your final result for the test. Su Yu nodded. Beside him, Wulan asked, "Are you trying to place first in the War Academy exam? I'm the only 8th stage student here. I'm not taking that test, so you don't need to take it either. You can still place first, I think. Don't waste your energy. If you get yourself injured, that might affect your exam in the afternoon." She and Su Yu were probably the only 2 8th stage students here. The other students from Wulan's group earlier were here for the cultural research examination. In any case, Wulan had not seen any other 8th stage students around. Then again, those at that level could simply take the examination in the capital. Su Yu said, "If a 7th stage student has higher marks than me at the language test and full marks at the archery test, I won't be able to place first. Also, since I'm already at the 8th stage, why shouldn't I take the test?" Wulan couldn't understand Su Yu's logic. She was advising him out of kindness. Wasn't he going to take the cultural research examination as well? The combat test for those at the 8th stage involved real combat. Was he not afraid that he would injure himself and fail to participate in the next examination? "Suits you." She decided to say nothing else to him. Su Yu looked at old Xi and said, "Teacher Xi, what's the test for 9th stage students, huh?" Old Sai looked at Su Yu and confirmed that this kid was still at the 8th stage. He smiled and answered, "No such test has been prepared in Nenyuan this time. So if there's really a 9th stage student here, will he be skipping the test?" Not really. The 8th and 9th stages are quite similar. For example, if you're a 9th stage student, your strength can be displayed in combat as well. Your proctor during the test will merely use a stronger strength when dealing with you. Based on your judgment and performance during combat, you will receive your marks for both the 8th and 9th stages. You'll only need to take the test once. Su Yu nodded. He seriously said, "Teacher, can you arrange a 9th stage test for me as well? I'm taking both tests together. You 8th stage source opening." Old Sai was about to say something when a bottle appeared in Su Yu's hand. He said, "Give me a few minutes. I'm near the 9th stage. This drop of source Chi liquid will probably be enough for me. If not, I'll just take the 8th stage test." Old Sai was left speechless for a long time before he cursed inwardly. Were all Nenyuan kids so rich nowadays? Where did he get the source Chi liquid? But that wasn't even the point. This kid was going to break through? Was he really progressing so fast? He had checked Su Yu's profile before. This fellow was only at the 3rd stage a few months ago. Is this kid perhaps a super genius in physical cultivation that has been led astray by language studies? Liu Wanyan had ruined him. As a cultural researcher, he had delayed the growth of a genius physical cultivator. That fellow should be dragged out and beaten to death. Old Cian cursed inwardly. He was both vexed and expectant. Could this kid do it? If he did it, would he be able to gain a high-tier evaluation? The 10 merit points he would lose was no big deal. The bigger deal was the fact that a local Nenyuan student would become a high-tier student. Damn, if he really manages to get a high-tier evaluation, the great Xia War Academy will definitely try to snatch him from us. Old C grabbed Su Yu and dragged him into a nearby room. Once in the room, he solemnly said, "Be careful! I'll keep watch for you. Be wary of the great Xia War Academy. They are fond of scheming against each other, and they dislike seeing the rise of new geniuses. That fellow from earlier is someone who can hold a grudge for a long time. The moment he knows you're breaking through to get a high-tier evaluation and claim the 10 merit points he promised, he'll try to ruin your breakthrough." Su Yu blanked out. "Will he even go so far? You're too young." Old Shi gravely said, "You don't know how dangerous the world is. Do you think everyone is as kind as me? Some people can't let anything go. Some people don't like to see others doing well. Their biggest wish is for everyone to be a mediocre talent. That fellow from earlier is one such person. People like them have ruined the great Zia War Academy. But don't worry, with my protection nobody can touch you. Old C had a serious expression as he said, "Trust me and you'll be fine. Also, don't get close to that fellow lest he tries something against you. He is a 6th stage Skysoar cultivator. A single hidden energy current is all he needs to cripple your acupoints. Keep a distance of no less than 5 meters from him at all times. Walk toward me the moment you see him approaching. I'll be keeping an eye on him." Su Yu's expression turned serious as well. Was that for real? This was an examination venue? Would the great Zia War Academy go so far? For only 10 merit points, they were going to ruin an outstanding student. That was too scummy. Old C was afraid that Su Yu would misunderstand completely, so he coughed and explained. Not everyone is like him. As a whole, the great Zia War Academy is not that bad, but that fellow is incredibly narrow-minded. Just stay away from him. Yes, just stay away from that fellow so that he wouldn't have the chance to use his recruitment pitch on you. Su Yu looked at old Shai suspiciously. I might be young, but don't lie to me. Are you even telling the truth? To recruit more students, you guys are slandering each other. Is this proper? Can't you treat a fellow human being with more sincerity and trust? Su Yu was tired. He was actually quite doubtful of old Z's words, but since he wasn't planning to join a war academy, it ultimately didn't matter. He decided to just walk away after getting the 20 merit points and 3 drops of source chi liquid. Su Yu did not take old Jelin's words seriously. There were definitely people out there who were jealous of talented individuals, but this was an examination hosted by the city. No matter how dirty the great Zia War Academy played, they wouldn't go too far here. Naturally, there was no saying what they would do in a more private setting. Su Yu didn't really care. He used the drop of source chi liquid in preparation for a breakthrough. He was on the cusp of the 9th stage. If it wasn't for the lack of time, he would have been able to break through with a single activation of the book in his mind. That would save him about 4 merit points since blood essence was cheaper. But compared to the 20 merit points and the rewards for placing first, it was worth breaking through immediately. At the same time, some proctors started passing the news to the other head proctors. When the middle-aged man from the great Zia War Academy heard the news, he was somewhat surprised. All the other head proctors were present as well. Bureau head son from the Talent Fostering Bureau, the 1,000-man commander from the Devil's Subduing Army, and a few other individuals all received word of what was happening. 9th stage source opening realm. The middle-aged man muttered to himself. He looked at Wu Wenhai, who had just arrived for inspection, and said, Mayor Wu, this Su Yu's father is only a 9th stage great strength cultivator, right? Yes. Su Long has been stuck at that level for years. Due to a lack of resources, he hasn't been able to break through. Wu Wenhai knew both Su Long and Su Yu. After all, Su Yu was Liu Wenyan's favorite pupil. He was still a 3rd stage source opening cultivator a few months ago. But now he's already breaking through into the 9th stage. The middle-aged man sank into thought. After a while, he said, Mayor Wu, if possible, can you give us an updated profile of Su Yu? Wu Wenhai naturally had no objection. That was actually good since it proved that everyone was starting to pay attention to Su Yu. A genius student might really rise from Nanyuan this year. That student would be a local, not a guest student from the capital. Wu Wenhai ordered someone to retrieve the requested information. After a few minutes, he received the updated profile. He earned 7 merit points half a month ago. The middle-aged man was astonished. What did Su Yu do to earn 7 merit points? The previous profile only indicated that Su Yu had earned 10 merit points outside of his language certifications. The points he received as gifts would not be counted. That was a decent number of merit points, but it wasn't surprising for some students to be rewarded after assisting the local windcatcher department with some missions. It would be perfectly normal for someone to spend several years to earn 10 merit points. But now, the profile indicated that Su Yu had obtained 7 of the points in one go. One ought to know that even by killing an early-stage infinite strength cultivator, one would only receive 10 merit points if there were no other bonus rewards. 7 merit points at once. The middle-aged man looked at Wu Wenhai and asked, Mayor Wu, have any major battles broken out in Nanyuan recently? Were any infinite strength cultivators killed? When Wu Wenhai hesitated, the middle-aged man smiled. We can get that information if we want. I just want to save time, Mayor. Wu Wenhai smiled and nodded. Half a month ago, a Myriad race cult hideout was wiped. An infinite strength ringleader was killed. I see. The middle-aged man finally understood. If he had not bothered investigating, he wouldn't notice anything. But once he started paying attention, he was able to guess the source of Su Yu's merit points. The kid had definitely helped in the fight against the infinite strength cultivator. Moreover, his contribution was definitely not inconsequential. Otherwise, he wouldn't have received 7 merit points so easily. Of course, there was also a possibility that he had killed 2 great strength cultivators alone. That's it for today's video. The next part arrives tomorrow. Subscribe so you don't miss it.